care about me? I don't really know, other than they must sense my authenticity.
Move over, gentlemen. She's coming through. Danica Patrick takes the lead.
She's racing against guys. Do they respect her the same? No.
I don't really care what anybody thinks. I'm just going to be totally honest about what I think, and that's it.
Does she have bitchy moments? Sure, but they're all caught on tape.
There's nothing that I take on that I don't do all the way. Because it's me, and I don't want me to suck.
She carries a lot of weight on her shoulders for who she is, her gender, and the fact that she's a race car driver.
It's the kind of stuff that wears you out for sure. I miss finishing better. I miss being relevant. I miss being good. Try harder. That's my saying. I would much rather be 1 in a million than 1 of the million.
So excited to talk about this film. Congratulations. Danica, what made Hannah the right person to help tell your story?
That's it, that it was Hannah. I did a documentary back when I was about 20 or so. So yeah, 15 years ago. And I didn't have very much fun. It was a lot of work, people following you around, constantly asking questions. And it's really an exhausting process because there's a process going on while you're going through the process of being alive, which is enough work as it is. So I love telling the story, but every time my agent would call me and say, it was code for, I've got a documentary to ask you about. He would say, all right, now hear me out before you say no. And I'd always know
Hear me out was how he started it.
Documentary. I was like, Alan, you know, I'm not going to do it. I just don't want to do them. But I always hear him out and let him finish. And I remember I was sitting in a parking lot somewhere outside of a racetrack, and I let him finish. And I was like, you know what, this could be really interesting. And the fact that it was Hannah, and the fact that the mission and the motive was not an ulterior motive. It was to tell a story. What is your story? And so, but in even talking about that of like, well, how do we want this to look? I'm like, I don't know how I want it to look. I don't know what's interesting about my life. I don't know what people want to know about. And so I want you to tell me what that is and what stands out, and also then just kind of let it organically evolve in the, process of filming and editing, what story emerges.
Hannah, did you hear about all those no's before listening to the people you said no to? No, I'm joking.
Yes, because
yeah.
I had requested a couple of times earlier.
Well, actually, that was it. Alan said, Hannah's been dying to work with you for a really long time. So,
right.
And I've always liked you, so it was just time.
And we've done probably a bunch of interviews through when I was like at CBS News and ESPN and all of that gradually. But, I also had done several films, and they had been
profiling women as well. Yeah.
A lot about women, and then the most recent one had been with Shaq, Danica.
I got a photo of Shaq. He came to Daytona a few years back, and there's a picture of me and Shaq. It's very funny.
Was it the top of your head or
same frame?
Yeah, I'm like I'm like at his belly button.
I know, but I think that the athletes that I've worked with have had really good experiences. And like Danica said, I think because there's not a huge preordained plan in terms of this is my vision. Obviously, I go into a film with a vision, but it wasn't like, this is my version of your story. What's your version of your story? Who really are you? And that's what I want to bring out and come through in the film. And the thing about Danica, she says at the top of the film, like, why do people care? They must sense my authenticity is exactly right on, because she knows who she is. So she's able to articulate that and live that. And that's what made doing this film such a joy to put together, because she's very, very sure of who she is and what she loves and what she thinks. And that's like a dream come true for a filmmaker.
Thank goodness so there wasn't like a lot of contradictory content to go through. Where you're like, well, that didn't make sense. Cut that. Wait, restart over. We're going to build it around this.
Never mind, scrap it. Exactly. I mean, obviously you can come in with the blueprint, the story that you want to tell, but were you surprised? Was there anything that surprised you, what ended up in the film? And Hannah, you can speak on that as well.
I mean, I think that what I took from the film, to me, that was interesting, because again, it's my life and it's been 35 years of just living, is it's kind of really sucked at times, and how hard it's been. I know it's been hard, of course, but to be good at anything is hard. I mean, I'm sure everybody in this room and anybody watching thinks like, my life's been hard too. It's true. And if somebody were to put a documentary together about your life, it would probably be similar, and that life is hard. It's what you do with it.
Yeah, and see, Danica's never won because she's so forward thinking and determined and positive and always moves on no matter how tough it gets. So I imagine you don't sit around and think about, oh, woe is me.
Well,
wow,
on the
that was
past.
really hard back in the day when I was 16 and I moved to England.
Pretty hard
and-
when you have all the luxuries that I have and
Yeah.
opportunities that I have to go and Debbie Down it.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, were you surprised at anything that ended up in the film, or something about Danica that you really didn't know before?
I
that
don't,
you were
you know,
fascinated
everybody
by?
has asked me that, and I guess the answer would be no. I wasn't really surprised at anything because I just, we met a year ago today. I went down to Charlotte.
About the documentary.
About this documentary, and we just had lunch and spent the day and talked. And I mean, Danica on camera and when the lights are on is exactly the same person that's here, is exactly the same person that's in her living room. She is just the real deal. So everything that happened, I gotta say, I didn't find anything surprising. I found a lot of it like very aspirational and inspirational, and
What
a
a-
lot of things I admired.
I have a
sure.
question. Can I do this?
Absolutely, the floor is yours. Danica
This is
Patrick.
what
Oh, yeah,
happened.
exactly. There we go.
So-
Ladies and gentlemen.
How did so you said that you have an idea of what kind of a story you want to tell before you go into it. Was there any differences between that and the final product? And if so, what were they?
Well, there always is, because you have the film that you kind of have in your mind, and then you have the film that you shoot, and then you have the film that you end up with at the end. Interestingly, because you were so cool and trusting, you didn't really give me any. I mean, she didn't say tell it this way or do it this way or I have to have it this way, because again, it's that inner confidence of knowing who you are, not having things to hide, being willing
And
to
trusting
share,
you.
and trusting, right? Which has to, like, that's what makes it work. So to me, it was just an evolution. I mean, there were certain things that, like, Danica's really funny. A lot of times, like, she's
I'm not.
funny. I
There's
think
a
you're
few laughs
funny.
in the documentary,
I think you're funny.
absolutely.
I wish I was funny. You're making my day.
No, you
Making my
are.
year. It's all
compliments
yeah, it's
hour,
true.
absolutely.
Thank you.
And I mean, really, she really is a good cook. I got to tell you, man. I
That
mean,
breakfast looked really good. I wish they had that
I
like
didn't know
Wonka
that way.
vision.
Now I go walking around and people are like, oh my God, I follow you on Instagram. Do you really make all that food?
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah. I
I'm
mean-
like, we're at Whole Foods right now. Of course I do.
Yeah,
I'm
really
I'm
good.
shopping for it.
Yeah. I would say the one thing is all of the spirituality is something that
Me as well,
I
absolutely.
wasn't as aware of. And like, we both love angels.
We just watched Wayne Dyer on the way here.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So,
I
yeah.
like Wayne Dyer. That's he's one of the greats,
Yeah.
right?
We listened to a little Eckhart. Is it Eckhart Tolle or Eckhart Tolle?
Another one of
Tolle,
my
right?
favorites.
I mean,
Yes.
it's like listening to meditation when you listen to
It
him
is.
talk with that German accent. He talks
It is.
so
and I have
slow.
some others for
And then
you.
he giggles.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah, we'll get some
see,
recommendations.
Yeah, you're right.
We're a lot alike in a lot of ways, and one of them is that. So I have, if you look at my bedside table, I have all those books that she referred to.
I've always been a self-help kind of person. Like
Yeah,
when I would be younger
same.
and like, remember when we used to go to the bookstore and buy books?
Yeah.
And read them?
Yeah.
I mean, we still do
Self-help
that.
books.
But when
Get back
I would
into it. Now
always
it's a
go to the
throwback.
self-help section.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but this is the back in the day where that was the only place to go was Barnes & Noble or,
Right.
somewhere like that. And so
Right.
I'd go and I'd always find myself in the self-help section no matter what. And so I've always loved that. I've always
Yeah.
been drawn to that. And it's just easier to get now because of, the internet basically and YouTube
Yeah.
and things like that.
But I think that's part of, again, why you know who you are, why you have this light inside, because you worked hard. You've worked hard at it. A lot of people they just don't work hard. They just go on to the next thing. And sure, you can watch your Instagram stories and have fun with that and do 10 jobs and all that crazy stuff that you do. But the one thing she does that's really interesting is takes time to be with herself, by herself, and really tap into those things that you're passionate about. And we just you know, I don't do that enough. Most people don't do that enough.
So easy
and
to
that's
forget
what's
it.
really cool. And that's one of the things I
Thanks.
found really inspirational.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think that's a huge, huge part of
message.
my message and something of me moving forward is how powerful we all are as individuals, and how, looking into more reasons as to how I got to where I am today. And even something simple, like I was doing an interview earlier and they asked about visualization. I'm like, I've actually done visualization since I was in go-karting. Like pictured the perfect lap. And so, trying to figure out what it is that's got me to this point and then how to go deeper.
Yep.
But we are powerful individuals in and of ourselves and create our own destiny. And so that's an important message.
I think people will be really surprised at the polarities and how complex a person can be. I mean, they see the high octane, they see you doing the laps at NASCAR, and then
No pun
they
intended.
see exactly, no
Good
pun
job.
intended. It was pun intended. And then this room where you have the singing bowls and these messages that you tell yourself
Love
in
or
the
hate that
morning.
stuff.
No, exactly. Can you explain that room and what that means to you in your daily balance?
I also have a book coming out at the beginning of the
January,
year,
right? Is
in
that
January,
correct?
pretty
Yeah.
intense. And one of the chapters in the book is about building your woman cave. And it's woman, and it was always written WOMAN.
Yeah.
And when I went to
I like
final
it.
edits, I'm like, why is the man capitalized in this? So it was
was all
WO
capitalized.
capital,
Yeah.
lowercase n. I'm not trying to but it's about a woman
love
cave.
that,
So
yeah.
anyway, but it's just something that organically grew as a space. I wanted some space to do yoga, and so it was this pool table room basically off of the pool, and I moved some stuff to the side, and then I kind of moved it even more to the side, and then I set my sewing machine on the ping pong table that got moved to the side, and then all of a sudden I put some, like, can I paint that? Well, let's just pick a paint, and I ended up being the one to pick the paint color. Wasn't intending for it to be my room or my woman cave. And then I was like, can I just put some stuff on the walls? And I just started hammering away. I didn't measure. I just threw it up very loosey-goosey. And anyway, there came the woman cave. And I'm like, man, everything in this room is something I love. It makes
Yep.
me feel positive. It gives me a space.
Restorative, absolutely.
It's just a positive environment. And so, it's all about being positive. Yeah. So,
You're
but
good.
I mean,
You're
like,
great energy to be around. Let's just have
Nice.
Danica Patrick
I know.
around all the
It's fun.
times.
But I
please.
mean, now I get why you guys have had man caves forever. Y'all are
Yeah.
smart. You've had your like little zones where you can do what you love and see what you get your stuff on the wall, memorabilia, whatever your sports.
Everyone gets a
I don't
cave.
know.
Let's have everyone have a cave.
everyone should get
Exactly.
one.
And the cool thing is, in the live screening last week, because we screened it for Greenwich International Film Festival, the second you said "woman cave," the audience was like, "Oh my god!" Like they were all laughing. They reacted. They were
Yeah.
like, "What a concept!"
And I know
Like,
somebody
everybody
doesn't
liked it.
always have like a room that they
Yeah.
can dedicate, especially
was
let's say
cool.
you live in New York City. You might not have an extra room. You might,
Yeah,
it
corner,
might
though.
be, you might be putting like 4 different things in one room in New York City.
Right.
But you can at least like dedicate a corner or a spot or something like that
Mm-hmm.
to something. So it's just a way to create positivity.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
you
cool.
talked about visualization when you were young and the go-karts and everything. I mean, was it fun to look back at that archival footage? And what were some of the
I always love
family
seeing it.
members
I look
and
so
like?
I look so terrible and tragic.
No,
in my-
it's great. It's so
my big
funny.
Glasses.
Absolutely.
They were army. They had an army
Oh
pattern
my
to
God.
it.
How about your dad? Like, because I did this with my kids. Like, I couldn't figure out how to get the date off the middle of the home videos.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I'm
when you
sure
get
they
the video
couldn't
camera,
either.
so there's dates like right in the middle. across
1991.
every-
I have friends that are
nostalgia comes
born
back,
then.
though.
I have friends that are born in like 1991.
I know.
Sad.
That's
Getting old. Getting
Wow.
old's great though. I love it.
Absolutely.
You know
I wouldn't
what's-
want to go back to
Then-
21 or 31 for
Yeah.
anything.
it's all growing. You know what I think is really cool too about Danica, and I think it's something everybody can take away from the film, is that she's not afraid to pursue other things. Like, you know, like we're all we live in a world where everybody's labeled and they're known as one thing. Right, so Danica Patrick, race car driver, but yet so unafraid to go into the cooking, to write a fitness book, to design clothes, to, really tap into those things that
Winery,
she
for one.
truly cares about. Winery,
It's
without,
okay. No fire affected it.
like that takes courage. And I think for all of us, sometimes we're in our little space of what everybody thinks we are, but we might have something else we really want to do, but we're scared to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think she's a really good role model in that way.
Well, I feel like I was challenged very early on with the things that I did, like, more sexy photo shoots and things like that about, who are you? I'm like, I'm all these things. Why can't I be? We all are. We all have multiple personalities. We're multifaceted. We have different sides of us that come out at different points in time based on what gets, sparked. And so I really firmly believe that we are all those things. And the more outlets you have for all these different parts of us that are inside to come out is a good thing. It's a therapeutic thing. It's fun. I mean, doing the same thing. I mean, just being known for like one thing your whole life. That's sad. We all have so many interests, I'm sure. And so, to get to make jobs of them all, or jobs, if you could call it that, but to make businesses out of them all, and see them on a daily basis in your light and how you visualize them is really cool and fun, and we can all do it. We all can do it. So many people are so afraid to try something because they're like, oh, like I can't leave my job because I have to pay bills, or, it's like, well, start small then. But don't say you can't, because as many times as you say you can't, you're not going to. If you don't think you can, you won't. Thoughts become things.
Yeah, I mean, are you feeling? I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah,
I was going to say,
absolutely.
I never would have started a production company. I mean, if I just wanted to be on the air all the time, but I moved my daughter out of her bedroom. I was like, okay, I'm starting a foundation and a production company. You're going to sleep with your sister.
Well, I think
And
that's a positive
it started
thing.
small, but it's the same thing. Like, you're like, well, did I grow up being a director? Did I spend the last, several decades on the other side of the camera? But like, if you really want to do it and you feel like that's a creative, muscle that you want to stretch, and you can start small, and slow and steady wins the race, really. Oh, there's a racing thing. But maybe not in NASCAR.
Sometimes that is true.
Still with racing puns.
Sometimes that is true, but also, I think that it's important that you did that because, I think there's so much fear that we have to like fail, or just to put yourself above someone else or something else, so maybe your kids or your significant other. But the better we are within ourselves, the better we are for everyone else. And so if you constantly put yourself down, that's where somebody else will put you too. So you need to step up for yourself.
True.
Nobody else is going to do it. So, and that's going to bring joy to you, which will also bring joy to other people. And so sometimes you have to have just a little bit of, if you want to call it selfish time or something selfish about it, so that you can bring your best self to the party.
What's it like to have the fan base that's just so ravenous to hear about your 2018 career? Again, you're talking about that job that you're associated with. I mean, what's your feelings on that when everyone wants to know, are you racing again? I mean, that pressure of that question, how are you dealing with that?
Whenever people ask that, I'm like, and I'm just going to say it right now then. Here's what I'm doing. No. I'm not 100% sure right now, but that's okay. I say that, every couple of years my life changes in ways that I would never expect, and that is really true, and it's exciting, but it's also really scary. And so I don't always know what that's going to be. Don't you think that you know where you want to be in 5 and 10 years? Don't you think you have a plan? What if in 2 years that plan is completely different, 180, and you're going another direction? That's kind of scary, because you're like, no, this feels so good, but you don't know what's best for you. You don't know what's going to be good in the future for you. And those opportunities get created for you based on your big dreams. And so while this may be your big dream over here, your life is manifesting according to something great for you. And so while I know you thought it looked like this, but I'm going to make it better, and it's going to be over here. And so you just can't be afraid of that, though.
I like that 180 analogy. We got analogies and puns firing on all levels. So we have some questions in the audience. We're going to start right there.
Hey, thank you for being here. What would be 1 or 2 things you would change in NASCAR and in sports broadcasting?
If I were to change something in NASCAR, I mean, from a competition standpoint, or
either or.
I mean, I think that I mean, other than saying something silly like merchandising, because we don't make any money off of merchandising.
I don't think that's
crazy.
I don't think that's silly at all, because
That's crazy.
that's your brand.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
I think it's a really pitiful thing in our sport. I think it's
good point.
I think there's just so many people making so much money, and so it's there's so much greed. There really is. I mean, just. There needs to be more purity in it, more long-term thinking. I think a lot of times we get short-sighted for ourselves even about what's happening right now. We need to think long-term. So I think sometimes things are short-sighted in NASCAR and in anything in our own lives.
Yeah, you can say that about the sports TV industry too, but I think sometimes the fans, I think, need to be more front and center. on all decision making. I think they need to really think about fans and people at home, and what they're relating to and how they're relating and what kind of product they're getting and how easy we're making it, and also just listening more. I think really listening to the fans and having them even have more of a voice than they already do, making them part of the content that we're providing, a part of the commentary. I would like to see things go more in that direction.
Absolutely. One last question.
I just kind of a random question. How would you compare driving in, say, New York City or Boston to being at Indianapolis, for example?
Wait, on the track, or
other than the speed being, 12 versus 212.
What's it like to drive in a car?
The similarity would be that you have to keep looking forward. You go where your eyes go, and so on the racetrack, it's the same thing. Sometimes I get caught in these moments where I'm check out of the corner. Where are they at? I'm like, I'm not going there. Look forward. And I'll tell myself for a few laps, just don't even look back. And sure enough, they'll be further back when I finally look again. So I think that that's the same way when you're driving on the streets of the city. And I learned this actually when I lived in England for 3 years. Is like, you're downtown London, man, if you take your eyes off of the road in front of you, you're going to hit something. So it's the same thing I feel like in New York or Boston.
Absolutely.
I've actually never driven in either city, but I've been in the cars many times.
There we go. Look forward. That's great advice all the way around in
It is.
this documentary. So Epix, November 8th is when it premieres. Danica is the film, and thanks so much for being here, guys. Hannah Storm, Danica Patrick, give them another round of applause.
Thanks, guys.
Please enjoy.